Alright, looks like we're good. Welcome, welcome. I'll give it a minute. I'm just going to be setting up here. Gotta let people know that I'm streaming. Alrighty. So, we are going to get this done. So, I realized that, well, anyway, here's just a quick recap. So, the idea was to make a tree that can hang earrings and these little family portraits, and to add a nice looking feature on the top. Pretty bird. And the last session I made this press mold out of one feather that I sculpted and was able to press copies out pretty well. I've got about one more to do, I think, on the back here. And then yeah, then it's a bit fill-in stuff. So what I'm gonna do next is fill in. These have all been clear coated, by the way, so they're nice and durable now. It pooled a little bit, but it seemed to dry thin enough. You don't notice. But I just hung them all on a dowel and sprayed them all at once. The only part that's a little bit not ready is this part underneath, and I'm realizing that if I don't want to damage this firmer clay, I'm just going to fill it in with this the softer flesh clay that I have. Same clay, just a different consistency with the thinner. So I'm gonna reconstitute a few more chunks. I've got a bunch of got a whole bucket here of old sculptures that I pulled apart, which like I said, it's probably somewhere in between the firmness of the firm and not firm. Oh my god, I forgot to clean my nails. So yeah, I'm just gonna get started with that. I'm gonna get the pasta maker going here in a second, or the clay flattener. All right. So, pasta maker is literally a pasta maker. This is an pretty old. You can see the brand there, made in Italy, and it's seen its days. You can see how I vigorously clamped it to a table a few times, because whatever the clamp device that originally came with is long gone. You can adjust the thickness of these two rollers by pulling out and spinning this. It goes all the way down to 6, which is quite thin, maybe a millimeter, and then all the way up to 1, which is pretty thick. So I usually start at 1 and work my way down. I'm going to clear this a little bit. I've got a nice wall up here so you don't have to stare at my messy keyboard. I can get at least a nice backing, and I can back up here. Look at this piece as I'm going. Okay, so to clamp it down, I just got one of these quick clamps. I can't do it too tight on this table or it'll start to crack. It's not the strongest table in the world. It's definitely not solid, but it just has to be sturdy enough. And you need the handle. Just goes in there. I never ever use these spaghetti and whatever those are, the fettuccine, the two bigger, the smaller slices. But that's from the original pasta maker. They do sell these now with just the roller part for flattening out. And as you can see, it makes really nice rolled up pieces. So even when it's been sitting for a while, it can be a little brittle. This is actually pretty good. You see how much it bends. So this is going to be a lot softer than the gray that I have, but if you want, you can just put it back in, run it through a couple of times, fold it, run it through again, and just that, you can see it's not quite tight enough down. Yeah, I might need another clamp here. I usually use a C clamp. That's very strong and tight, but it ends up it's too strong. Bends the table. As long as it turns, it's okay. You see, just running it through again just smushes all those layers together, and then if I go down to a thinner, I can even just drop it all the way down to 6 and run it through again. Once it's been in this state of a little bit thinner, it's a lot easier to pass through. Even now it's a little rough because it's not stuck to the table as hard as I want it to be. So I'm kind of stabilizing it as I go. You see how that little piece makes this giant piece. And obviously that's useful for clothing and other things, but here you can see I can at least warm it up in my hand almost instantly just by holding it. So I'm going to do a few more pieces like this from here while we get ready, and then I'm going to do the one more feather press and fill in the underneath, and it's going to be all about getting the details. So see how far we can get today. Got a deadline here, so I'm going to try to get this done. And yeah, this is really satisfying, honestly. I've done this for hours at a time sometimes. And you can see it gets crackly, but this is not even nearly as bad as the gray clay after it's been sitting for a while. The firm stuff will come out as just chunky powder for the first pass, and then you have to put it through a couple of times to get it back. But this is actually pretty good. It's barely crumbling. It's mostly stuck together in one piece. Going through pretty easy. I usually do bigger pieces than that, but I don't need too much for this. I'm just doing a couple as an example here. I'm trying my best not to get dirt and hair in it, but you know, it happens anyway. Maybe we'll do once down to 4, and once at 6. There you go. Super smooth. Yeah, I probably have enough here. Let me do one more, just to have another good chunk. So I'm doing a few of these chunks. These are just ripped off of an old armature. Something I didn't want to bake and keep. Oh, another side note, this is exactly the same clay, just tinted with a little bit of paint. I just took even acrylic paint, put a few drops of the colors that I needed to make it more towards a darker skin tone, and it worked really well. I'll get this off the desk so I don't drop it. Okay, here we go. Oh, right. When you start on 6, you see what happens. It just pulls it through as little chunks and powdery chunks. You don't want that, so that's why I started with thicker, especially going from big pieces like this. It needs a little friendly push, but it's nearly impossible to get your fingers stuck in there. Oh, Hi. No, this is not epoxy clay. This is polymer clay. So it's super sculpty. So this isn't too much. I'm going to put this all in one piece, so you see I'm just going to stack it up, overlap it. It'll be messy the first couple passes, but then it'll come out real nice. I hate these little pieces, but it's worth the time. Don't want to waste the clay, and it's still perfectly good clay. Until you bake it, it'll stay like this for years. The more you try to put through at once, the harder it is the first few passes to deal with, but it's not so bad. So already it's practically one piece. I'll do a few more. But just the action of pressing it into itself a few times, it's already moving it around, making it smoother and softer. See, already it's practically one piece. More. Go down to 4. Sideways, it just gets stuck in the edges. I mean, the thing gets a little bit of clay stuck in the rollers over the years, but it's not so bad. It's all just clay. I obviously don't use it for food anymore. I would recommend having one that's not for food. It says non-toxic, but I wouldn't eat off of this stuff. All right, so now we're ready to get started here. Got enough going, plenty of this stuff. And yeah, this feels quite soft, very easy to warm up in my hands. So let me get some in my hand going. Oh, and I did get the earring hooks, so I should be ready to go. I'm going to put these together also. Have them ready to go. Now let's see, I just need one of these. So I basically figured out that maybe 1 or 1.5, whatever lengths of the stuff that I have, is about enough for one of these feathers. I'll just warm it up in my hand. Yeah, so unlike epoxy clay, this won't ever harden. Epoxy is like a 2-part. You mix an A and a B. They do have a gray one that's pretty similar to this, like a black and a white. And you mix them when it's smooth gray, you know it's mixed, and then you can make stuff out of it, but it is not. I think you have to use gloves for that stuff. I wouldn't use bare hands on that, and you have a very limited time to work with it, but it will make rock hard, and it's really good for repairs. Honestly, I use epoxy putty for a lot of things, but not for sculpting. I know there's one guy who does that. I can't remember his name, but he makes some toys out of it. It is useful because you can sand it pretty much as soon as it cures, but you can do that with this stuff too. You can polish polish it down really smooth even before. So epoxy putty stays pretty sticky while you're working with it, and yeah, I don't like the threat of it drying on me. So I prefer this. A lot more options. But honestly, for those doll repairs, epoxy putty probably would have been a better option, really, because I could have built the hands and just left them on there. They would have stuck and merged into the broken ceramic parts pretty well, and I wouldn't even have to glue it. Probably I'd just leave it, and then it's done. Don't have to bake it because it hardens. So yeah, that probably would have worked better. But I've done it this way. I don't have any epoxy putty right now, so, or at least not enough for that. So I'm going to use the clay I'm familiar with and do the baking method, which I've done many times, and just glue it on after it's baked. Okay, so this is basically what I was doing a bunch yesterday. If you missed that video, go back to the last one. But that's where I made this right on the desk here. Just poured it, a simple wall of clay, poured it in hydrostone, which is just plaster, and yeah, worked out really well. I was able to make copies about a dozen times, and it doesn't show any signs of damage or wear. It's really good quality plaster, hydrostone, if you're curious. It's basically plaster. A little bit better property once it's cured. Alright, so while it is still a little warm, I'll press that right in. Use the tool. Trying not to pick it up. Rubbing it back and forth a little bit. I'm using the sharp end of that to cut it as I go. And I don't think I need a full length one, but I'm going to do it up here anyway. Trying my best to keep it all in one piece. It's very firm, so it wants to break and lift up, but I'm trying not to do that too much. I can also use a knife. A little bit easier to get a big chunk off. That's about it. You can see I've got no release agent, just comes right out nice and clean. Alright, so that's about the last one of those. Oh, don't think I need any more. I've been looking around it and it seems pretty well balanced. I don't want to mess with it. It's working. So the last one's gonna go somewhere around here. Gotta make sure it curves up. So what I'm doing around, you see how I've got them sort of staggered as they come down, staggered as the next row. So this one, I mean, really it should be there, but I'm going to use some license here, just to interpret it however it works. So I'm going to say this one a little bit higher than the one below it on this side. Should do it. That seems to flow with the curve and makes some sense. So you see I didn't really need it to be the full length. So I'm just going to cut it right there. And as I smush it, I'm just following the pattern of these little feathers. Trying not to mess with the ones below it too much, and yeah, there you go. It's not the best join in the world, but it really, as long as I don't leave air gaps underneath each one, it should be good enough for what I'm doing. And once I bake it, it'll stay in its position. But that's again why I want to put some support underneath it there, which is why I got this flesh colored clay out, which is the same clay. I wouldn't be mixing clays trying to bake it, that would be kind of silly. But I have seen people mix pretty much any of the Sculpey brand clays you can mix together, because they do have colors of Sculpey too that bake, but they're a different consistency. They're very smooth. But if you mix them, let's say with the gray or the flesh, you'll kind of even out the properties. I wouldn't, you know, I don't know if there's any warranty to avoid by doing that, but you know, this is just something I've tried, so you know, disclaimer, blah blah blah. Already, cat needs some attention, but I gotta ignore her while I'm doing this. Trying my best not to squeeze it while I'm holding it is always the trick. I do want to get it down, so I have to lightly press. Okay, I think I got enough for this rendition. So I'm gonna have to see what to do about this. Obviously there's feathers all over this spurred, but I'm gonna find some kind of pattern that I can make out of the tool. Quickly get around it, but I want to stabilize this backing of these. So if I'm gonna do any kind of plating or dipping later, this has to be pretty strong. And even just the baking process and long-term durability. I don't want to have little gaps like this. And usually when you're making this kind of thing, you know, you would pull it out of one piece or carve it. If you're doing a carving, you wouldn't have this problem because you would never carve out that hole, and you would just have these sort of rounded undercuts to make it more stable and hide. Anyway, it's a carving thing, but when you're doing additive clay like this, you end up with these gaps. So if you don't want to have ugly gaps or instability, you got to do something. So this is where I'm taking these super soft, gross flesh colored clay. I'm going to warm it up very fast in my hand. You'll see it's already way smoother. I'm barely pressing, and I've got like a just super soft version of this clay, which again, super annoying. It's really hard to get it to hold onto wires without having a serious thickness. It just wants to fall off. But when you're making some things, it's really useful. But I don't like the... Once I got used to the firm, I really didn't like this consistency very much. And this is clay that's been sitting for years, so it's even a little firmer than the flesh-colored one that you can buy retail. But for this purpose, it's exactly what I need. So it's softer, it'll merge with this perfectly, and it won't disturb the shape if I press it carefully. So I want to get a bead of it basically behind each of these and merge it into the tree in a smooth way. This one's a little tricky though, because there's a gap. I don't like that gap. So I'm not too worried about air bubbles. Like I said before, this clay is pretty forgiving. As long as there's any kind of air gap, it'll be fine. And I could always seal it up a little bit later once it's baked. I can check for water tightness. And if I am going to be spraying it and copper plating it, it's going to be, you know, fill up with water if I have any holes. So I'll try my best to make it watertight. All right, now I'm going to hold this without smushing it. Eesh, tricky. Got it resting against my belly. Just going to feed this into the hole, and then use a tool to break it off and cut it and smush it. Oh, so much smoother. So I'll have something to press against there. And fill it up a little bit more. See if there's quite a gap. See if we can get this whole piece in there. Oh, it just feels like melted butter compared to the firm. Or let's say soft butter compared to butter out of the fridge. It's very soft. But it's got the same quality of stickiness, so it will it'll merge. You can literally mix it right across the surface of the other clay. It'll bake perfectly. So as you can see, even though that's not necessarily realistic to what the original tree was, this kind of rounded undercut is the way to go. And if you were ever trying to make a molded version of something like this, you would have to clear all those undercuts like that. All right, so now I have something to stick that feather down. And there we go. Nice and smooth. And I'll work around the details a little bit later, but I think that's pretty good for that hole. Really, I could put a couple of feathers. I was talking about that yesterday. I might finish that with a feather or two, as if it were the back of these, but I don't know. I think I might just carve them in. We'll see. I don't want to build it up too much. I kind of like the way it looks. Let's see, that one got lifted up a little bit. So now that I have that stuck with that other clay, I have something to press against here. Trying not to stab myself at the other end of this thing. It's very sharp. All right. Trying to listen to an audiobook, but it's way too distracting, so I'm going to switch back to music. As always, I will not have music playing for copyright reasons, and also so you can listen to whatever you like if you're watching back and working along this. So please enjoy. Excuse me while I clip this. Nope, it will not clip because I put it on first. All right, well. Okay. Get my reference up as well. So I just Googled a bunch of peacock sculptures just to see how they interpret feathers. They're all quite different from each other, I'm sure. If you're looking, you can find. But if you're ever trying to do a bird sculpture, for sure look it up. There's a lot of artists who have figured out ways to interpret feathers without having to model every single feather. But if that's what you want to do, go for it. Okay, I need a little bit behind these guys for sure. You can see how that filled in real nice up there. This little bit here, a little bit there. I don't want to destroy the shape of this, right? I want it to look, hint that it's thin, but still going to need something behind it, otherwise it's just going to break off. Still got some work to do up there on the wings. So I'm going to get like a flat bead going. Trying to guess the volume of the piece that I'll need to go up. About that much. Probably too much, but let's see. You can always cut away if I put too much on. A little easier to smush against when there's something there. And I don't want it to curl around too much. I kind of want it to be lifted up, like loosely falling down. Probably should have put a bead of softer clay behind each one of these. That would have made it a lot easier to stick. You can see how it wants to crumble at the edges. I'm going to clean that up once I get this more solid. So I'm going to try to flatten this a little bit more, like a wedge shape. Get it in there. Like that. Just tacking it down a little bit, doesn't fall out again. Will work. Press it. I'm really holding this light. Doing my best not to smush. So I'm trying to create a pocket that's kind of smoothing out that crease that's just open. I don't want to have anything like that. It's too deep, it's too sharp. Sorry, the random seemed to stop. All right, we're good now. You can see how this clay, if I was using anything, if I was trying to use the same firm gray clay to do this, it would not work. It would just smush what I'm doing. And that sharp edge of that feather, probably don't want that either, so I'm going to probably build that up, round it off. It'll help if I get it somewhat in the right shape first. So I'm going to build a little wedge point here. Not really sure what I'm going to do with that point yet. I'm going to see. Probably do something like that. Let's see how it fits. See, I'm building up the back of it. It's going to make it much more stable. This is not the right shape for what I want to do. Let's see. Oh, yeah. Get these spheres out again. These are always super useful for this kind of thing. Practically the right shape. I'm purposefully smearing it a little bit as I go. I want it to merge and mix. So a little bit of smearing is a good idea, especially along the joins there. You can see how smooth and clean that joined. You won't even notice. When it bakes, it'll be exactly the same surface quality. Where's the smaller one? And these shapers aren't the worst either. I've got a few of these guys. The rubber, I don't know. I try to get into them, but for whatever reason, I prefer metal or my fingers. It's nice to have a little bit of give, but I don't know, they're a little too squishy. And they stick to the clay, it feels, in a weird way, which I don't like. It was working. I like it. Feel how much stronger that is already. Doing my best not to squish. On this side, I'm barely holding it. The weight, most of it's pressing against this finger, so I'm trying not to squish it. So yeah, I'm going to be doing this for a while. This is just a real-time version of this. I know time-lapse is all over the place on the internet, but I don't know, I don't find those as informative, and also, that's not why I'm doing this. So, this is meant to be a real-time demonstration of what this kind of thing is, what it takes time-wise. I think a lot of people don't realize. You can see that thickness, the tapering. It's going to add a ton of strength. I'm going to try to get this up in that little crack without destroying it. Ooh. This is where I'm going to try to mix it on purpose, really get it to be stuck to the edge there. Oops. Forgot to switch to live chat. Alright, well, it's on. I haven't really been watching these back, so hopefully these are streaming okay. It looks like my bandwidth is handling it. Ugh, stupid cable. Hold on. I have to go over the head. Bah. Is it gonna make it? Yeah, it's better. Kept messing with these lenses. Right. We're good now. So that part's a little bit thin right there, so I'm just going to fill it in just a tiny bit. So I'm pre-flattening it. I'm flattening the edges on purpose, making it a little thicker in the middle. Oh, wow. This clay is so soft. I mean, just imagine, I tried to do full figures with this stuff in the old days before the firm came out, and it was very hard. You had to basically not touch it once you got it on an armature. But having a turntable and stuff is a little bit easier, some of these things. But, you know, being able to pick it up and move it around is obviously a little easier. I used to do like figures and pop the heads off, make the head on a stick. If you watch my old video, you'll see that part. Alright, I really like that now. Feels nice and supported. I'm gonna finish this part under here now. Trying not to distort this tip. I want to keep that shape just like it is. It's thick enough now, but I think I want a little bit more in there. Oh, I see, got a little sticking out over there. That's okay. I'm gonna let that stick itself down. That'll help hold down that last bit. Might even stick a little bit underneath that gap that keeps opening up. Yeah, let's try that. So we're gonna make this paper thin just by squeezing it. Super thin. I can see right through it. Even just cheat by lifting it up a little bit. So kind of just using this as if it were slip. Because of its consistency, it kind of works. It's so thin I can just pick it off like this. There we go. I got a nice little piece underneath. And we'll come up again. Lost a little bit of detail after doing this a bunch, but for the most part, not having to make those eyes over and over again, is just saved hours easily. Okay, and I'm just going to clean up all these little gaps. And I should be good to go on this tail. And I'll do some work on the feathers on the top. Finalize the trunk at the last. See, I gotta hold it. There's no point in doing any bark detail. It just keeps getting smushed as I'm holding it. But because it's firm, I'm not losing the overall shape. Which I like. Get there. Pretty much have to have the sculpt done today to have time to bake tonight, spray tonight with the conductive paint. I should be able to plate tomorrow. Yeah, it's gonna be tight. So then I'm not planning on painting this. I think full color would be interesting, but boy, it takes a lot of time. And also, I think this, for its purpose, having this in full copper plating would want to look up metal plating, 3D printing, basically the same technique I'm using. And there was a lot that I learned from watching those videos, but I also had to learn as I was going and figure some things out. It's very different depending on the size and the shape and so many things. And using the wrong kind of material for your conductive paint is just going to wreck it. So I'm just going to add a little bit where these trouble areas keep coming back up. Even just putting a little bit of this clay on top is going to act like glue. So just mixing it in. Too much of a gap right there. And stick a few more little bits in. Oh, I guess you can't see that if I hold it that way. That's perfect. Yeah. So again, I don't want any really deep cuts here. Not really for, I'm not going to mold this or anything, but I don't want to have any cracks, holes. Also for plating, any undercut is going to be the last part to plate, so you don't want to have too many deep gouges for that. Just run a little bit of this across each of these. Stick them down better. Yeah, it's working out. Just smushing it so it's nice and thin, but that layer of stick on top is going to actually help a lot. Super small amounts. Mixing it in as I go. Smoothing it out nice too. Yeah, I think I'm gonna just keep doing that. It's working out really well across there. It's just filling in this gap here as I'm pushing it, sinking in deeper. So just kind of using that, filling it in as it pushes deeper. It's going to make it more solid as I do it, which I'm not against. I want it to be solid. Yeah, that filled that in nicely now. So it's not coming up. I was able to sculpt the transition. And it's stuck. And I'll have to come back in and do these little feather lines again, but really not that big of a deal. Okay, just finish under there and be done with that. As long as the silhouette looks good, I mean, really, you can get away with a lot of hidden support in these undercuts. that was carved out of anything, you would need the same shape to support it. And see how much stronger that is already. You can see how smooth this clay is. It's just sitting on the desk and it's not even getting too firm. I'm trying to get all the sharp points off of the severe angles. I think I got it now. And where is my little one? This little guy's good for this too. See, it wants to generate those little flakes, which I don't like, but you can just rub them off. Yeah, this is good. Just a brush with the finger really lightly, smooths it right out. Very useful for that final touch, cleaning up that transition. Seems to be missing a little piece there, but not the worst. It's kind of wrapping aroundish. It makes it look like it's sitting on that limb, which is fine. Don't mind it. Got a little gap back there. I'll fill that in. Just stabbed it. You gotta watch those tools in your hands. That's a good fill. So you needed that little piece. Keep going from my head. that. Got that backing. And this finishing stuff is kind of tedious and time consuming, but it's really what has to happen if you want this thing to actually work. Alright, that side is good. I like it. So we have to do the same thing over here, a little bit more, and figure out what to do on the back. Probably just fill it with the soft stuff. I might even do a press with the soft clay, see what happens. Stick a feather in there. Kind of do a gap there. Get this lift up here. So yeah, not too much more. Should be wrapping this up. I'm going for an hour already. Wow. Yeah, it's going to be a long one. I'm just going to keep going. Oh, it's already... Wow, I didn't realize how late it was. Alright, well, I might stop soon for lunch. Let's see if I can get at least the gaps in the backing filled with these feathers. And then we'll start on the top part of the bird. Get all the detail up in the face, the feathers around the wings. On the next one. So I'm just filling a little bit from the front. I'm realizing most of it's going to have to come from the back probably, but not bad to start that way. Yeah, I have to fill that from the back first. I'll start with smaller pieces just to get it solid. As you can see, it's a little tricky to get it laid in there. I'm just going to stab it, stick it into place. Again, it has a really, makes this really easy is having a softer clay. So I'm using, again, the Super Sculpey regular, mixing with this firm. You can see it mixes perfectly. Yeah, just reinforcing all this with this clay is going to make a huge difference. Be a little more mass, a little bit more weight, but totally worth it. start there. Okay, I'm just using my fingers to hold it up here. It's not much detail. I'll just try to get all that filled in. Starting with little bits just so I can get it stuck to both sides. I'm not worried too much about it. I'm trying just not to press it and change the shape on the outside. Might have been better to start with this underneath again, like I said, but I mean, you don't always plan these things out, right? See, that's filling in a little bit from the back already. I think I like where it is. I actually don't mind it pushing out a little bit like this, so I'm going to just keep working from the other side. Just carefully holding it. I'm just going to use this whole piece. Again, I'm flattening it to a wedge so that it slips into that gap easily. So much softer. It's gonna be a tricky one. Can't push too hard or I'll smush one side. Some more back in there. Yep, it's working. Let's try and take the sharpness off of the edge there, so I have something to press against. Nice. All right, that feels nice and solid now. Might clean that up a little bit. But I'm going to see what I might do to add one feather in there to cover that up. So let's finish down the side here. This is the weakest point right now. I don't like it. I'll fix it. So I'm trying to go back and forth a few times on purpose, maybe messing it up a little bit, but I really want to mix that clay so it sticks. It'll settle in nice and strong. Okay, so that's pretty deep undercut in there. I think I want to round it out a little bit more. That gap there. I want this to be out. Okay. See if I can stick a piece in the back of that one. Start to build it up that way. And getting this in kind of the right shape ahead of time is going to help. Yeah, a little too thick, but that's okay. I might even just hold it for a second with my hands to warm it up, stick it together. I will lose some of the detail. It's all right. So when I hint at little breaks, you can see from the silhouette that side it looks very fine, but now that I've got this backing, you can see how it's much thicker. Support it well. I like it. I think it's working. Gotta be really careful. I'm pressing pretty hard on that side. Not too bad. I lost a little bit just now. I was realizing I was pressing a bit too hard, but it's okay. I'm going to get a nice bond this way. Yeah, look at that. So much more solid now. No flappies, no gappies. Those are the technical terms, by the way. Yep, that's working. It's going to be this weird piece underneath here, but who's ever going to look, right? It's going to look good from almost every viewing angle, and it'll hold itself up really well if I fill in that gap, so I'm doing it. So I just need something to press against. That's why I can't get this closed too easily. Smush it a little bit. It's worth it. Just need one more piece in there, and I think we're good. Okay, now finally look at it from the other side. See what works, what doesn't. be careful. I'll keep holding it there. That is a pretty deep cut right there, but I'm not filling that in because I don't want to change that shape. So well, looks like it disconnected and reconnected there. Hopefully it's still going. It says 0 dropped frames. I don't know. Alright, well, just gonna finish this up. Still working on these little gap fills. As you can see, it's filling in real nice and smooth. Sticking really well with this clay. Just going to add a little bead around each of these loose ones. And then I'm going to be done with the front. Put a little more between that one. There we go. That is filled in nicely. I'll clean that up in a bit, but it feels solid now. That all feels really good. There. Okay, it's just this bit here. So I'm debating whether I should push this over, just touch it. I don't know if I like that gap. Maybe I'll ease it just a little bit. There we go. Cool. Cool, cool, cool. Alright, I'm super happy with that. That feels super solid. And, oops, missed one. A little gap there. Not too bad though. That overall feels way better and more complete, ready to bake than an hour ago. Ooh, 2 hours. Oops, looks like I lost his little fluff. It's alright. Probably gonna have to put that back on with wire anyway. See already how much better I can press against this. So all that support behind it now. All right, pretty happy with that overall. Got a lot of work done there. Ugh, my gap is starting to bug me. The join, I mean. Let's see how much thicker and stiffer this clay is. Yeah, it'll work. All right, let's try one press out of this, and then I think we're good for now. Break and come back. Get some detail. Finish up the earrings. This is so soft, I barely need to do anything to it. Just put it into a ball. A little worried about it sticking, but we'll see. I've got enough oil built up in this from a bunch of presses that I think it'll be okay. As I said in the last video, what I really don't want to do is add any mold release. Any kind of oil or chemical substance might mess with this type of clay. So you could press into silicone, but as you can see, this plaster one piece worked pretty well. Certainly a lot faster than dealing with silicone. Gotta let that dry overnight just to get it cured. All right, let's see what happens here. Oh, so easy to press. You might even use the blade to clean it. It's a little bit easier. Never cut towards your fingers. So peeled it away a little bit. The knife wants to lift it out, but if I press again, I should get what I missed. I'm trying to get this pretty thin actually, because I want to put it in the back. All right, hopefully it's not too stuck. Let's find out. I could just use one of these this as well. There you go. And as with everything, this color is super weird. As you get used to it. But yeah, that worked. It was a little harder to pull out because it was very stretchy. I might have distorted it a little bit, but worth it in the end. So I'm going to get one more under here just to clean that up. Technically, the back is not exactly the same as the front with these feathers, but I think we'll use some artistic license here. You can see if this was all built out of this, it would be nearly impossible not to squish it. Oh, come on. Not cut. Alright, I'm pretty happy with this. I don't like that little deep cut there, but I can just fill it in. Papers. That's it. That will do. Yeah, that feels way more solid. And that one you will see. Yeah, might do a backing on this. I could hint at a little eye there, but I'll just carve it, press it in. Alrighty, I think we're good. Looks like I got a little bit of nicks here and there. A couple tool marks, easy to fix. Alright, okay, I'm gonna break for lunch. I'll be back. Gotta finish this today. So we're gonna work on feathers and earring clasps. Does not feel complete without this little guy. I like that silhouette. Nice curve coming all the way down. It works for me. Alrighty. Thanks for watching as always, and feel free to ask questions. I'll usually get to the comments eventually.